success. Another one is you have to appreciate your athletes. Now, I would say that everyone that I talk to, and I do a lot of motivational speaking with large corporations, companies, and they say, we appreciate all of our employees. We definitely do. But then when you think about you do in your head, but what do you do to show them that you appreciate them? That's something totally different. I would bet that most coaches would say, I appreciate my athletes, but if they were presented with the question of, I know that you do, but tell me what you do so that they know that you appreciate them, that's something totally different. I think giving somebody the gift of appreciation is one of the greatest gifts you can give any human being that there is. Most people would rather have the gift of appreciation more than anything you could wrap up in a box. It is an amazing feeling when someone gives you the gift of appreciation. But I think there's a couple things. If you want to be a master of giving the gift of appreciation, that you got to do. One, you got to be genuine. And what I mean by that is in this day and age of text messaging and emails and Facebook and answering services, looking somebody straight in the eye and telling them something, it's almost unheard of anymore. I mean, who actually eye-to-eye contacts with people anymore? But if you want to give the gift of appreciation for it to be powerful, you got to look somebody right in the eye and tell them. The second thing is you got to be specific. The gift of appreciation becomes very confusing if you're not specific. You might have somebody in the workplace that the manager comes in and he says, wow, Susie, I really appreciate what you've been doing around here. Thank you very much. And they walk out of the room. Susie walks back to her office and says, that was great. He must mean that he appreciates that I've been coming in early. That's got to be it. Or maybe it's that I got the report in early last week. Or maybe he actually doesn't know that. Or maybe it's because I've been staying late and making sure that everyone in the office got their work done before I went home. But maybe he has no idea that I've been staying late. Actually, I have no idea what he even appreciates that I'm doing. Maybe it's something other than those three things. So you got to be specific when you look somebody in the eye and tell them exactly what you appreciate about them. That will make it very powerful. And make sure that when you give it without any attachments. What I mean by that is when you say something of appreciation to somebody, you can't say it to get something back. That's kind of manipulation, not appreciation. I assure you, you will get things back. But when you say it, you got to just give it and then let it go. And the last thing you need to do is practice. And I cannot imagine something that is more inspiring to practice. I challenge you today, find somebody. Now, it probably won't work if you say it to the person sitting next to you, but find somebody in your life and tell them something that you appreciate about them, something that is beneficial, that's brought something good to your life. It will literally change their day, I guarantee you. It might change their month, it might change how they view you forever, but looking someone in the eye, telling them specifically what you appreciate about them is an absolutely amazing feeling. It's something that, I'm talking about track and field and athletes and the benefit of that, but it goes much beyond that. In your workplace, in your private life, whatever it is, the gift of appreciation can just stop people cold and make them feel absolutely amazing. I had a strange situation with appreciation when I was just a freshman at the University of Kansas. We were doing repeat 600s indoors. So we have an indoor facility called Ann Schuch Pavilion, and we were doing these 6 times of 600. We had finished 3, and a teammate of mine, Kevin and I, we stopped where the trainer had the water set up, and we were going to get a drink. Now, we were jogging 2 laps in between each 600, and our teammates were going to come back around, and then we would jump back in and run the rest of the jog and then start the next interval. But for whatever reason, they only ran 1 lap. When they got to the start-finish line, they started the next 600. Kevin and I looked at each other, and we knew this wasn't good. We watched from a distance as our assistant coach, who was timing our workout, walked over to the middle of the field where Coach Timmons was, and they had about a 5-minute conversation, and Coach Timmons started making a straight walk for Kevin and I. Now, you've got to know Coach Timmons to understand this too much, but you didn't mess with practice times. This was what we were going to do during this time and nothing else. So we knew when Coach Timmons was walking towards us, this wasn't going to be very good. And sure enough, when he got over there, he said, guys, get your stuff and get out of my practice. Well, my friend Kevin, he absolutely went berserk. If you've ever been around somebody, just all of a sudden they went from normal to just crazy and you couldn't figure it out, that's what Kevin did. He started yelling and screaming. He took his spikes off. He threw them up in the air. He was cursing. He was going to transfer to Kansas State, which is way worse than the curse words, trust me. University of Kansas track practice. But he just went absolutely nuts. We finally got out of the far end of Anschutz into our locker room. Kevin was going nuts, just pulling everything out of his locker, stuffing it in his bag, said, I'm transferring out of here. I should have never came here. No one disrespects me in that way. A few minutes later, the captain of our team came into the locker room and said that Coach Timmons wanted to meet with us tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock in his office. Kevin said, you bet, you tell that old man, I'll meet with him because I want release from my scholarship. I'm going to Kansas State. I said, Kevin, just relax. Maybe when we explain what happened, everything will be all right. Well, Kevin and I agreed to meet out in the parking lot so that we could go in together, and the track offices are in Allen Fieldhouse, so we met in the parking lot of Allen Fieldhouse. You thought we just got kicked out of practice like a minute ago, because when Kevin came walking, he was yelling, screaming. I talked to my mom last night. She told me to tell him I'm out of here. I will come back and haunt this school with my great performances. And I'm like, Kevin, just relax. Let's see what he has to say. So we got into Coach Timmons' office. There were these two chairs sitting in front of his gigantic wood desk. So it was one of those desks that looked like he was a half a mile on the other side, and here's these two little freshmen sitting in their chairs. Coach Timmons wrote in this notepad, it seemed like for a half an hour, but it was probably for about 30 seconds, and then he closed it and slid it over to the top. He looked up at us and he said, guys, I want you to know how much I appreciate getting to coach you. I kind of looked down at the ground and thought, well, that's not what I thought he was going to open with. And he said, guys, I want you to know how much I appreciate how hard you work. Now I'm sitting there thinking, what in the world? I know, these are the notes for the 10 o'clock meeting. He's got them switched around, but I'm not about to. But he went on and said another thing of appreciation and another. I looked up at him then after looking at the ground, and I kid you not, Coach Timmons had tears welling up in his eyes. Now, I know most of you probably don't know Coach Timmons, but I'm telling you, in my eyes, he is the legend of legends. Sitting in his track office, all the way around the entire top, up to the ceiling, are All-American certificates after All-American certificates. Sitting at the edge of his desk, stacks as tall as my waist, are the ones that will no longer fit on the wall. Underneath that are world record certificates, NCAA record certificates, all over his office. Olympic memorabilia that his athletes have brought back that ran in the Olympics. And now he has tears welling up in my eyes. I instantly think, oh my gosh, my crazy friend Kevin here, when he's done, he's going to let loose with this. So I actually am taking my foot and I'm kind of trying to tap him, getting him to maybe look at my way, and sure enough, I finally just look straight over at Kevin. And guess what? Kevin's crying too. So I'm thinking, now wait a minute, this meeting isn't going at all like I thought it was going to go. Coach Timmons was supposed to scare these two little freshmen to death. Tell them if they ever made that mistake again, they would be out of here. Kevin was supposed to yell at him and say, I'm transferring out of here, and now I'm the only one in the meeting that's not crying. But Coach Timmons gave us a couple minutes at the end of the meeting to explain what happened, and he said, okay, see you at practice at 1 o'clock. Get out of the office. Kevin and I walked out of the office, and as soon as we stepped out, we both just looked at each other like, what in the world just took place in there? That is nothing what we had expected. But at that instant, I didn't want to wait until 1 o'clock anymore for practice. I wanted to go right then so I could show Coach Timmons I would never let him down ever again the rest of my life. I was hoping when I walked back to my dorm, I would see him so I could carry him on my back wherever he wanted to go, because there is no doubt about it that the gift of appreciation stirs up loyalty like nothing else. I don't know about you, but the people in my life that I feel like appreciate me, I am as loyal to them as I possibly could be. And that's what Coach Timmons did for me over 20 years ago. And still to this day, he is one of the few people on this earth that if he called me and said, I need you to do this, I would get there and figure out a way to do it.